we really need to encourage kids to visualise. Even, and this is way off the topic here, but even when you're looking at NAPLAN maths, probably a quarter of the items on NAPLAN maths are actually on two-dimensional drawings or three-dimensional shapes. And I found it really helpful to teach kids in Year 7 to imagine they were walking around the shape and looking at it. So they see the two-dimensional shape, but they imagine walking around it. Now, can you see how that's putting them into the three-dimensional context? Because when they do that, they can then see it. Whereas when they look at it as two dimensions, they don't see all the bits to it. We do spend a lot of time reducing 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. And we don't encourage kids to visualise. And we don't encourage them to visualise all sorts of situations. I mean, how often, if a kid's having, say, a social problem with a peer, do we get the kids to imagine what the solution might look like and then work backwards from that and say, what would we do to get to that? And yet it's very powerful as a counselling tool. So visualising, we tend not to teach, and yet it is a very powerful thinking skill, extremely powerful. And the more we can have the children visualise this. Well, look, let me make some points. Yeah, but Anna, I would be wanting to give the kids images where they then had to think about them, because often if the technology delivers the image, nothing changes. It's even worse, because then it's all given and there's no thinking. But see, if we look at this, let's say we visualise this. Its banks provided reeds to make the boats, roofs, baskets and papyrus. The flax that grew in the riverside fields provided the material to make fabric. When you visualise that, what do you see?
Well, actually, I reckon someone would think the banks, those that would give the money to provide for these.
They're giving the money to buy the, okay, the banks. All right. Now, its banks provided route. All right. Okay. Okay, so if we were on the banks of the river, we're just going to ignore little Anna at this point. She could take her money banks and go elsewhere. No, but so if what do you see when you visualise that? You see the river. You see the reeds going. Come on, you're my class. I'm getting you to visualise. Okay. Okay, so they're cutting them down, and we've actually done some studies of ancient Egypt. Now, the people are on the banks cutting down the reeds, and they're using them to make these items. How often, when you've looked at a picture of ancient Egypt, have you seen an iron foundry? What were they using to cut down the reeds with? They were using a scythe. What's the scythe made of? Year 7? Metal. Where'd the metal come from?
The iron factory.
Where is the iron factory in ancient Egypt? If they had an iron factory, why didn't they build a coat hanger over the Nile?
I think
They import them. And how do they get them carried to ancient Egypt? On camels? On boats? So they've got barges. They've got barges. What have they made the barges out of? What holds the barges together? Wood. What's the wood? What holds the bits of wood together? Nails. Do you see what I'm on about here? Can you see how the image will allow you to be creative? It will allow you to go further where the paraphrase won't. As soon as kids visualise, they'll see things. And whenever any of us visualise, we will see things that otherwise you wouldn't. And so away we go with visualising here, and we've raised the issue, how did they in fact have a metallurgy industry? And so what did they know about, metallurgy in ancient Egypt. And we know they had all those beautiful, ornaments and, the gold, the masks made of gold and whatever. So it all fits in. But when we encourage kids to visualise, we're more likely to get higher level comprehension outcomes. I'm more likely to have the kids being able to infer. They're more able to comprehend the text and build higher level ideas. If I don't have them visualise, they won't get it to the same extent. Paraphrasing won't deliver that. Visualising will. And same with the inundation. The river's annual flood cycle helped to set the calendar. The inundation or flood season was regarded as the start of the year. This period, blah, blah. It was seen as a time of rebirth, a time when fertile new soil washed down from the highlands was dumped on farmlands as a base for next year's crops. What do you visualise there? What's happening? Particularly the last bit. That's flooding. And what's happening? Soil's being brought in. And people are planting. Imagine in the days gone by, 30 years ago, when the Murray flooded. What did people do? They didn't want to flood, and so they all ran with sandbags. People are still growing along the Nile. Are people still growing along the Murray? No. Can you see how we can be creative? Now, can you see where I'm going with this, though? We can really get the kids thinking of all sorts of ideas through visualising. When you just visualise a flood now, people can't run with the sandbags fast enough. So our brick veneers don't get 2 inches of water in them. But anyway, I'll leave it. And now it's into summarising. I mentioned earlier some data with teaching the students at St Bernard's. And we're using the torch. And what I've got here are the students' torch scores for one class, for 1 year 7 class at St Bernard's. And the standard deviation, the averages on the torch before the kids had the intervention was 42, and this was for the lower achieving students, and it rose to 49, and for the higher achieving students started at 52 and rose to 56. When you look at whether or not that was a significant effect, one of the key factors that we were looking at there was when you divide them into the two groups, the effect of the group being in one group or the other was 0.42. Does anyone understand anything to do with the stats? So if you see those significant findings, you can see that they're really significant. This one here, an F value of 18, that's significant at 0.0, and then when you look at within each of the groups, the effect size was 0.5, and that's quite high. Again, you can see it's really highly significant, the difference between the two groups. And then if we just look at that lower group, that smaller, the group who achieved at the lower level, the improvement they made, the effect size there is 0.65. Now that's very high. That is a very high one.
Was there a control group?
In this, the control group was really the starting point where we started, like we had pre-test and post-test. Do you know what I mean?